right on point with the two examples that you just gave. Um, as we're talking about this silent war and aspects of what a silent war would be. So my question to you right now would be: um, is there a way that you could probably break it down a little bit easier for me to understand for those out there who might not quite get what you're speaking to when you're talking about a silent war? Could maybe if you said
Mm-hmm.
or spiritual warfare, excuse me, we're talking to spiritual warfare,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe if we said silent war, a silent war against our people is going on,
Mm-hmm.
that would resonate more and turn that light bulb on for those who don't really understand what a spiritual warfare might be.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Um, so that's correct, it could, because might go past some of it. So now, dealing with when we say a spiritual war, or when we look at the spiritual war, we looking at it in, it's just like you said, it's like a silent war. It's not physical. Um, at the time, later on it could turn physical, but you're always dealing with the silent war in the beginning. It's always the forces. So it's kind of like having a positive and negative force. Kind of like, if you want to go back to it, just like with the cartoons, you had the devil, you got the angel and the devil. You right on one shoulder, devil on the other shoulder. So you got these two voices. You know, if that's a good example, you got these two voices that's talking to you, one in this ear, one in that ear. So now you got a battle, because you got to say, oh man, which one? Which one am I going to submit to? Which one am I going to lean to? Which one am I going to listen to? Which one am I going to block out? You see, now when as far as when we start experiencing this, when we experience it at a young age, of course, and when we start experiencing it where it gets real serious, because now at a young age we get these same things, but it's kind of like most of the time it's not detrimental. Now it used to be, now it is. I know when we grew up, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and we grew up in the 70s and 80s. So, we didn't have the type of stuff that went on then that goes on now. Now you have even, and they like really babies. They committing crime. You like, man, I ain't never heard of nothing. Ain't never heard of nothing or seen nothing like that. You know what I mean? They could be 6, 7, 8 years old and knowing how did this happen. So now we come back again to what you asked about. It all starts with those two spirits. But then now what has happened is that what has been introduced to the child, what's been put before the child, this is a spiritual war too. And they're taking in. See, they're taking in more things that's graphic, more things that's disrespectful than when we were more. And also, they're not getting handled like we were handled. Like when it came to our mothers and fathers, our guardians. Even if you didn't have a mother, father, the guardian, it was a more starch approach on the youth then at our age and time when we grew up than it is now. So now it's like real too lackadaisical, and to where that you allow the media and these things that's going on in society, with this entertainment and all that, to entertain the youth. So that's another spirit. It's not physical now. What I'm talking about is part of the spiritual warfare. Just like you said. So when they see something, when they get this image in their head, and when something's being steady, perpetuated, and steady ingrained inside of their mind, right? Nothing physical. It's causing them to turn into a whole different individual, because these are spiritual forces, right? That's aligning themselves inside the mental of the youth. So to come back to that, I don't want to get too, we can go in more and more in depthness, but all I'm saying, I don't want to do, I want to give an enlightenment on what you asked me. So to come back to that, so these are things before the action, before the physical action, right? They're the image that's being put forth, the graphics that's being displayed, whether it be on games, the video games, or whether it be with movies or different things that they have promoted, and they project with through the FCC, and they allow these things to happen, and that's a whole nother fight within itself. You see, that's a whole nother war, and so you we have to remove them from that. It's kind of hard, but it can be done. We have to try to remove them from that. But this is the spiritual, the silent war is what you're saying. This is where it's coming from right here. So these are things before we even go into the action, and then the action starts, because we've already got something here. We got something formulated in the mind, and then now we're thinking to do certain things that we believe that is proper for some reason. I mean, proper to us at the time, at least, or to the individual at the time, at least, and commit certain actions or acts that is not ethical, not moral. It's not. It ain't aligned with nothing that's going to generate any kind of prosperity out of it. No growth, but from that, dealing with that spiritual war, somehow we submit to the thing that's of the lesser benefit, of course, and then there it is. Then something arrives from it. So, so that's my analogy or intake on for the individuals that didn't really that maybe didn't catch it at first. That I hope that they could grasp a hold of that. So that's the war outside of the body and also inside. Nothing with the physical movement at first. So this is what we're talking about, and this is what we're dealing with. And it's a very, 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 very critical thing, and something that I don't think that we really take serious in that fashion. I don't think we take it serious. But yeah, that's it's definitely, and it's real, and it goes real deep. Just like I said, you can take it in different aspects and look at it in multiple different ways. But it's all about us being able to combat that when it comes to growth, when it comes to elevation, when it comes to going to a higher state and reaching on a higher level, and coming from that animalistic plane. If that's a good term to use, or if people can understand what I'm saying. That so it's real critical, real critical, and it's something that we definitely need to be looking at and focusing on, and trying to come up with the solutions. And there's solutions there. We just have to, kind of pull away from these everyday ideologies, especially in this day and time that that we're dealing with, and break the thinking of today's time and thinking that we have to keep up with the time, because keeping up with this time is not a good. This is not a good concept. These things are being brought into the play in this day, in this era, is not really is not that good.
Quillan, one last question. I was gonna go ahead and let you close. I know we entered at the end of our clip here, but you kind of answered it. You kind of tapped in on it. And I was gonna kind of, like I said, just kind of let you close there, but I'll go ahead and throw it in so you can include it in your close. What does that front look like that our people would need as a means of protecting ourselves against these situations that would occur in this the spiritual warfare that we are in, the silent war that is going on? What would that front look like, real quick?
What would the front look like?
Yeah.
First, I'm believing and aligning with the self. As we always talk about, you got to start with self. So starting with self. So now, history. I'm big on this. We have to learn our history. We have to go back and we have to look at history. We have to look at the past. We have to look and see and research and go and understand what our history was like, what happened, what transpired. These things that got handed down to us, that and how it got handed down, and then once we figure that out, once we see that, then we can be like, okay, look, hey, let me get rid of that. Let's find a way to rectify this, right? And it's like I said, it's a way for everything. Kind of like when we got handed, kind of almost like that. One thing that happened through slavery and through the oppression was let's just say us eating pork, right? And some people might not look at that as something big, but it is, because one reason why is because it is. First of all, we have to understand that this was what was given to us because we was fed something that was the lowest of the low, right? And they like, you can't get, this is what we need to have. This is what you're gonna get, because you can't get none of this. You can't get steaks. You can't get, you can't even get the pork chops, right? You gonna take all of this leftover stuff that's nothing but filth, right? And and then it causes all kind of different diseases, and when you look at the things that's inside of that, scientifically, and that has nothing to do with no religion or nothing like that, that it's something that we've been told to stay away from, not just because of that reason, but because of the things that's inside of it, like parasites, all kind of different parasites that go to your brain, parasites that go to different parts of the body and eat up on different things, So this, whether we look at it or not, this affects us. This affects our thinking. This affects how we operate, how we move. I'm speaking on from experience, from coming away from that, and my body, things change as far as health wise in my life. So, speaking on these things, I try to come from a perspective of where I have been in there, indulged in it, and involved in it, or seen it firsthand. So when we talking about the front, we look at the solution. We look at what's going on, the problem, and then we look at the solution and the best solution. So we lay it out there, and then that's how we attack it, just like that. So and like I said, we can go on, we can go further. Kind of running short on time, but I always hope, and I always want, and I'm always in a high spirit and aspiration that we get something out of every time that we look at these issues, that we look at our condition and how where we are, where we at, what we facing. How can we get better? How can we make ourselves better? How can we be a better example? How can we be a better role model? How can we be a better servant? And we always looking to get there. So I hope that it was something that you could grasp. I hope it's something that something that we can take and meditate on, think about. Then, hey, we can come up with a solution. If you got a solution, or if you got a suggestion for a solution, we'll love to hear it. You can put it in a comment, and then we'll get on that. That's what it's all about. It's not about debating to me. That's why I named this Bringing Forth Reality, because I can't get around it myself, even though it's some things that most of the stuff I'm convicted of. So it's about bringing the solution. It's about rectifying the situation, even if it hurts me, even if it hurts you. So I appreciate y'all once again for tuning in. Quillen Brown, aka Rashad Abdul-Haq. Like, subscribe, share, and tune back in so we can see what else that we can elevate at the next, and see where we can go on the next level, because that's what it's all about. It's about growth, prosperity. I appreciate you. Peace and blessings.